Seoul is still capable of surprising me. Maybe that's hard to believe, but it happened here in Dobong-dong, where Seoul didn't feel like Seoul at all. And I mean that in the best way possible. I love this place so much that a part of me almost didn't want to show it on YouTube.
What is up, everyone? We gonna explore Dobong-dong today in Dobong-gu, and we'll start at Dobong-san. So a lot of Dobongs today. I was surprised how far up north it is, because I live in Dobong-dong, and from there it took me like 45 minutes by car. That is quite far, and you suddenly realize how big Seoul is, because I already lived, kind of like northeast, and this is the northernmost neighborhood that we have. There's one thing I want to see first, a temple on Dobong-san, so let's check it out.
Dobong-dong is in Dobong-gu, and it's the northernmost neighborhood of Seoul. You can easily get there by taking subway line 1 to Dobong-san station, exit 1, and follow the hiking crowds to the mountain. This will get you to the most popular mountain entrance from this side.
We're not doing a big hike today. I want to go to Cheonchuksa temple, which is about 2 kilometers here from the entrance point. And I want to see that temple. I'm not sure if I've seen it before. Yeah, I read online that it's probably the oldest temple here on Dobong-san.
The temple we're about to see dates to the Unified Silla period and was originally founded in 673 by the monk Wu as a hermitage. So it is true that it's one of the oldest temple sites connected to the Seoul area. That's pretty cool.
Kind of easy to miss this, but this used to be the site of Dobong-dong, an old Confucian academy. It's all gone. I think I see some ruins here and there. They're trying to excavate a few things. If you go to the beginning, there are a lot of signs telling you where all the temples are, and you realize, wow, so many temples here. It's hard to choose. I love how they try sometimes to tell you what a good photo spot is, as if we're incapable of making our own decisions to decide where you want to take our scenic photo. It's so beautiful here. We made it. Cheonchuksa. I know it's supposed to be one of the guardians, but it looks like he's giving us his best dance moves. All right, Cheonchuksa. Wow, look at the peak of the mountain. That is stunning.
There's more to this temple than just its age. An Indian monk named Jigong once visited this site and supposedly remarked that the scenery resembled Vulture Peak Mountain in India, one of the most sacred mountains in Buddhism. Back then, an old Korean word for India was Cheonchuk. And according to legend, that's where the temple got its name. From here, you can either continue hiking up toward the peak or head back down, which is what I will do because there's still a lot more to uncover in this neighborhood.
Alright, check this out. The carvings here are from the 17th century, done by a Joseon scholar, marking the entrance to the Seoul Confucian Academy that used to be there. The little green spot with the tree that we saw earlier when we started ascending the mountain. And this is still here. That's awesome. So we're back at the foot of the mountain, and I realized, because it's now almost 1:30, it took me quite some time to go up and down the temple. It's almost 1:30, and I realized I didn't have breakfast nor lunch. I was feeling weak, and I was like, I don't feel like vlogging today. Apparently, it's because I didn't have any food. No can do. Why did I go up without any food? Anyway, this little place here sells kongguksu. It's gonna be my first kongguksu of the late spring, early summer season. I can't wait. So when you go down here, there's lots of stores where you can buy all the hiking clothes and shoes and sticks. And there's lots of good Korean hiking food. I'm starving. It's sweet, this kongguksu. I think he adds some sugar, and yes, because that's how I like it. I'm a sugar man. I know it's an unpopular opinion, especially in Seoul, but I want my kongguksu with a little bit of sugar. Of course some salt, but my preference goes to sugar. That is crazy. I've never seen a heron so close, and he wasn't scared of anyone. I love how there are suddenly so many veggie gardens over there, and just in the middle, you see that? Someone built their house. So we're going to a place called Musugol. It's an interesting place. You will see in a minute. Oh man, I just gotta keep reminding myself that we're still in Seoul, and it's like a crazy hot. It's 31 degrees, and I kind of forgot how difficult it is to film something in these temperatures. Here, this for example, look at a house like this. Doesn't this scream Korean countryside? it looks like this house has been here way before everything around here was built. All right, my gut feeling told me to come here. This is Musugol. It's called Musugol, and Musugol is a very old village within the neighborhood Dobong-dong, but this village has been here for way longer than Dobong-dong exists. According to an information sign up there, the village was divided between the upper, middle and lower section. And at the upper section, you had two clans, or mostly two clans living. And one was the Cheonchuksa Ishi clan, and the other one was the Andong Kim clan, the Andong Kimshi clan. Now, from what I understood from information that I found, is that the Cheonchuksa Ishi clan has mostly disappeared. But there are still 10 or so households from the Andong Kimshi clan living in this village. So let's just check it out, and you can already feel a completely different atmosphere. That's crazy. I mean, what a place. Look at this. Like, yes, there are a few newer villas here, but I'm talking about these houses. They've been here for some time already. 많이 걸어요? 네. 감사합니다. 네. Okay, so I asked to the man sitting in the garden if he is from the Andong Kimshi family. He isn't, but he said they're still living here, just not here. We have to walk a little bit up into that direction. Look at the views here, guys. Look at the views. Earlier at the entrance of Dobong-san, there were a shitload of people. It was so busy, and that on a Thursday morning. Now we're at another entrance into Bukhansan National Park, and look at this. There's just no one here. There's almost no one here. What a difference.
Maybe you're wondering why these clans established a village here. Well, the reason the Cheonchuksa Yi clan settled here is because Prince Yonghae, one of King Sejong's sons, was buried here. His burial ground now includes many members of the Yi family and is designated as a sole tangible cultural heritage site. I even met people who personally knew members of the Andong Kimshi clan, but unfortunately nobody picked up after a phone call.
근데 저는 안동 김씨 가족 찾고 있어요.
안동 김씨 가족을 찾고 있어요.
네, 여기 많이 남아 있는 줄 아는데.
집성촌.
So I guess we'll just head to Prince Yonghae's tomb instead. And honestly, the further I walk into the village, the more rural it becomes. I'm not sure if I've ever seen or felt anything quite like this in Seoul before.
See, this is where we're going, and now we're right here. And look at this, look at all the rice paddies. The Cheonchuksa Ishi Sejong Wangja Yonghae Gunpa Myoyeok. Yeah, what a place, guys. Look at this. Look at the rice paddies. We found it, the tomb. The tomb of the prince. And what a spot it is. Here, the graveyard includes the tombs of Prince Yonghae, a son of King Sejong, and loyal Lady Kim, I guess they mean royal Lady Kim, his father-in-law and descendants. So researchers put great value on the stele for the tomb of his eldest son Yi, in as it is supposedly the first example of geographical names such as Dobong and no one being inscribed on a stele. Ah, that is interesting. So there's a stele in front of the grave that mentions the word Dobong, maybe referring to the mountain Dobong-san, or maybe the temple Dobong-sa, or maybe the neighborhood Dobong-dong, or the Dobong-gu. So the graveyard is viewed as precious cultural heritage, as it provides a great wealth of information on the grave system for the royal family and changes in the stone figures placed near tombs. Look how big these stones are. You know, to compare it with me, I'm almost 2 meters, I'm 196. So this is 2 meters tall. What a place. It's kind of hard to explain. It's so relaxing in here. It's so nice that you almost forget. Well, I did. I almost forgot that I was filming a vlog. And then, oh, Bart, come on, you're still working. Come, do your job, otherwise you have to come back. I thought they were mowing the grass, and then I realized it's the bees that are zooming. The bees. There's so many bees. They don't want to get any closer. I know they probably won't do anything, but you never know. Thousands of them.
Seriously, if you saw this shot, would you ever guess this is Seoul? There's a legend that after his son's tomb was built here in 1477, King Sejong visited the valley, drank the spring water, admired the scenery, and supposedly described it as a place without sorrow or worries. That's allegedly where the name Musugol comes from. Whenever Koreans talk about healing after a trip into nature, this is probably what they mean.
I think I found them, guys. Here are several gigantic hanok. They're so big that they must have been of the Cheonchuksa or Andong clan. Look at this, look at the size of them. And they're so gorgeous. It's all just a guessing game now, but it's quite peculiar that you have suddenly like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, probably a few more huge hanok standing here in the open with a big garden. Yeah, you tell me if you know. Is it the Andong Kimchi clan or the Jeonju Ishi clan?
So the trail to the temple, busy and touristy, follows the northern stream in Dobong-dong, but the southern stream is the much quieter one, leading you toward the rice paddies and the prince's tomb. Now we're heading to a place that stands in complete contrast to everything we've seen so far. We have to go all the way to the northernmost point of Dobong, passing 2 charming train stations along the way.
I think this is it, here on my left. It's a place that I read about and I've never seen it on social media. Could be my algorithms, but I don't think many people know about this place. Maybe just the people who live nearby. And it's right at the northern edge of Seoul. If you walk past this building, you walk straight out of Seoul. So let's check it out. And right from the bat, a piece of the Berlin Wall. So this structure here on my right, this used to be an anti-tank apartment building, apartment complex. I imagine it was much higher than this. People lived inside, maybe just military personnel. And if then the enemy would come from that direction, let's say North Korea, then this will be a first obstacle. So there's an observatory. From here we look straight into Gyeonggi-do, and here you can see the structure really well all the way to Dobong-san station, and these were apartments. From here they were waiting for another North Korean surprise attack, and we heard surprisingly little about this. Imagine living in those apartments and you have a view over Samgaksan, Dobong-san, and that mountain. 3 mountains. That's crazy. 안녕하세요.
어디서 오셨어요?
네덜란드에서 왔어요.
네덜란드?
네.
한국 좋아요?
아, 한국 너무 좋아요.
코리아 좋아?
네. 이 건물 뭐인 줄 아세요? 이 건물? 네.
몰라.
좀 멋있어요, or no? 아, 그래요? It's a nice observatory though. 9 out of 10 times we go on a rooftop in my videos. And I was almost afraid that we wouldn't find a nice rooftop. But this counts. It's an observatory, but I count it as a rooftop, guys. So don't complain about this. Even Ajosi, who came up with the observatory, he is here on the structure and doesn't know what it is, right? So people come here and still don't know what it is.
To give you an idea of what it looked like, here's an old photo. It was a military defense structure disguised as an apartment complex, built to stop enemy tanks from entering Seoul from the north. The facility was completed in 1969 and stretches about 250 meters long. Today, it's been reborn as a cultural space and people seem to genuinely enjoy it. The second to 4 floors were used as civilian apartments for camouflage purposes. At first, soldiers lived here, but later ordinary citizens moved in as well. I'm actually curious if any of my followers once lived in this building. It really shows how seriously the North Korea threat was taken in the late 1960s and early 1970s. As much as I love buildings like this and the history attached to them, what really stayed with me was Musugol and how little it felt like Seoul. Honestly, unlike anywhere I visited so far in the city, I really want to put it on the map as Seoul's northern countryside. Maybe it's not the most original nickname, but it genuinely feels true to me.
See you next time. Ado!